Hello and welcome to this special interview with Prince Tonye Princewill, the governorship aspirant for Rivers State in Nigeria. Let's have a conversation with the man and find out what he has to offer. Good evening, sir.
Thank you. Good evening.
How are you doing today?
No major complaints, just minor ones.
Good, good, good. Now, first of all, let me say thank you for this time that you've given us to speak about this. But I would like us to take things from the very beginning. So let's rewind back to 2007.
Okay.
You came in as the governorship candidate for ACN. At the time, your supporters included Atiku and, of course, Bola Tinubu. What happened? You've moved from ACN to PDP.
In 2007, it was Action Congress, and I was the governorship candidate of the party. Of course, other notable members, you've mentioned them, people like Atiku and Bola Tinubu, yes. But in 2010, I left them and I went to PDP. Now, of course, PDP at the time was a much more realistic home for me because Action Congress had been, making all sorts of demands on me. And one of the demands was bring money from Amechi and give it to us. Wow. And if you don't
Why
do that,
would they ask you to bring money from Amechi if you were their candidate?
No, of course, the elections were now over.
Okay.
There was a unity government in place.
I recall.
And that unity government had both Action Congress and PDP working together. And they were under the false impression that the unity was about money. It wasn't. It was about the progress of the state. And I was looking to see how I could bring collaboration to move the state forward. Okay. Which, of course, had never been done before. AC and PDP were at loggerheads and they were fighting each other. So here suddenly was a state where they were both working together. It didn't sit down well. It was very difficult for them to take. But when they saw it going, they thought, oh, okay, makes sense. And so there were demands that I should bring money. And I said, well, it's not that kind of relationship. But after the blackmails and the threats, and they said, well, if you don't give us what we're asking for, then we'll take the party away from you.
So even though you were working in unity with the government of the day, which meant that AC was actually part of whatever the government of the day was doing,
it was.
They were not concerned about development or progress of the state, but they were more focused on money.
I mean, if you are surprised by that, then that means you don't know Nigeria, you don't know Nigerian politics. It's actually quite normal. I was naive at the time. I thought that the progress of my state would be something that would appeal to not just my state.
I asked that to say because then I recall that AC were very much about we are the developing, we are the, when they morphed into ACN, it was all about we develop our states better than what PDP do. Thus I asked the question. What
they morph for what they say they do is down to an individual. There's no collective agenda, there's no collective theme. They don't sit down and say this is the ideology that we run by and therefore this is what we represent. So we don't have people sitting in a room and saying, hey listen, this is what we're going to say we are about. There's no coordination of that nature. It's not as sophisticated as some of us would like it to be.
What are some of the things that you can point to, and then you could say that, as a result of this coalition, is now standing in Rivers State, for instance?
It's unfair to say that we or I can take credit for the progress that Amechi made in his first tenure. But I want to think that we helped. I think that his first tenure he was a lot more focused. Amechi was able to put down some infrastructure. He was able to focus more on the governance and less on the politics. So to me, all those things are pluses, but I think it's more relative than anything else.
What was it then about PDP? Were they also not demanding some kind of money? What was it about PDP then that made it a better home?
Well, really, for me, you had a very clear scenario put before you. You had AC at the time asking for financial benefits to continue with them. You also had an election coming. This was 2010 and the 2011 election was around the corner.
That's right.
So I had to ask myself a very deep question, which is, are you going to contest for governor? And when the answer to that question was no, I immediately realized that sitting on the AC seat and holding on to it if I wasn't going to contest an election wasn't practical. So Moving to the PDP basically was my way of saying, Amechi, I'm supporting you for the second tenure. I will work with you and with the party to deliver you in 2011.
Okay.
So everything just came together. But of course, there's no decision I take politically without calling all my associates together around the table. And we sat down and we looked at it and we thought to ourselves, this is the best decision for us. So it was vacating the AC seat. You have to understand that while I was the AC governorship candidate, and then beyond that when I was the AC leader, I was responsible not just for Rivers State, but all of the South-South. I was taking care of Bayelsa State, I was taking care of Akwa Ibom, Cross Rivers. And I had no political position. So what traditional politicians will do is they'll have a political office and then use that political office to further their nest. I didn't have that luxury, thank God. I was using my own money. So I had limits to what I could do. So when the opportunity came for me to walk away from that and walk into a party where everything was already being taken care of, it was like a breath of fresh air. I had to breathe a big sigh of relief. Okay. So for me, it was the easier thing to do. It was the practical thing to do, and I always like to take decisions where I can sleep well at night. Okay. And so the PDP at that time was, in my opinion, the best bet. And my associates agreed. We discussed it and we took the decision. Okay.
So you moved over.
We did.
The coalition was going on, all was going well. You mentioned there that you left. Why? What happened to that relationship that caused, brought about you making the decision to move away?
Well, it's a couple of things. First of all, immediately we decided to work for the reemergence of Amechi at the 2011 election. We found that he started to renege on some of the relationships that we had. We had two commissioners working with him in the unity government, but once he came back, those two commissioners were no longer needed, and so on. But I never bothered too much about that. We still kept working alongside him until the battle and the drama between himself and, I don't want to even say it was between himself and the president, because the president really wasn't doing much fighting. But there were obviously clearly issues between Amechi and the federal government, at least the federal part of the party. And as he got deeper into that fight, we found that automatically he was distancing himself away from us. Because the advice from our perspective was that that fight was no longer necessary, and what we needed to do was to build rather than destroy. So I don't want to say I left him, it's more like he left me. To be fair to him, he called me from a distance, said, would you join me? And I said I would not. So it wasn't as if there was any friction or any fight, it was just simply a parting of ways, because he had taken a position to work aside from the president, and we had taken a decision to work with the president. That's just a separate thing of political differences.
Political differences, yes. But then recently, we know that in the press, there appears to be some kind of exchanges between the two of you.
There were exchanges between the two of us.
Okay, thank you for the correction. So there were exchanges between the two of you. What went wrong?
I keep saying to people, I say politics is not about friendships. We're not in politics to make friends, we're in politics to deliver and make our people happy. Now, if in the process of doing that, you do something wrong, I should be free to tell you that you've done something wrong, and vice versa.
Thank you for staying with us. Welcome back. So just before we went on break there, we've talked about, moving from AC and the coalition government and or the support to the government of the day. And then of course you were in PDP. Now in 2013 you said, and let me quote you right, you said that the crisis that was happening in PDP was normal in the context of conflicting regional agendas and tension between these two agendas and national interest. Break that down.
Conflict is a function of interaction.
Naturally.
So when you see crises, conflicting positions, it's fairly normal. In Nigerian politics, most people get frightened and scared by it. But it's amazing how people argue outside and go inside and make peace. So I've seen it many times. And it's like people predicting that the PDP is going to implode. I don't make those kind of predictions. I'm much more circumspect about these things. So That's all I'm saying. The fact that people should not get carried away by the fact that people are arguing in the daytime.
Okay.
In the night, they can get up and settle, even at the last minute.
So the crisis, there were a lot of crises that we saw in the PDP from 2013 right through 2014.
There's always been crises.
They always are, but these ones were quite, shocking to some.
Okay.
For instance, we saw the situation in River State where overnight we had a new chairman that was just installed, apparently. And he's operating.
It was a court judgment.
Court judgment, yeah. And then we saw the situation where 16 became greater than 19, federally, nationally. This was outcry for everybody to say these things are wrong. But then, in spite of that, you remained within the party. What made you stay at that point?
As far as I was concerned, there was no reason to say. None of those things were happening to me. Were happening to others. And so I wasn't going to be crying over somebody else's pains. I was going to cry over mine. As far as I was concerned, whether it was the 16 becoming 19 or whatever those scenarios were, they were all a well played out script.
Okay.
It was actually, funny enough, it was a sleight of hand because everybody was looking at 16 versus 19 as the issue. But what was really happening there was that the Governors Forum was being divided. And the Governors Forum being divided, from a political standpoint, if you understand how Nigerian politics has always worked, the governors have always controlled the country. The governors have always controlled the party. The president has always been, playing with that control. For the first time, as we see now, the governors don't control the party, the governors don't control the country.
So what you're effectively telling us is that it wasn't just a simple case of what we all thought we were seeing, but it was more a script of power or play out of who should control and have the power.
If you look at the country in Nigeria, the governors have always produced the president and the vice president.
Right.
It's been an association of governors from Obasanjo, first tenure, to Obasanjo, second tenure. Remember the whole article?
Yes.
Whatever. If you follow the political history, you see that the governors have always controlled. The ministers of the country have all come through the governors.
Right, yeah.
For the first time, you have a president who is choosing his ministers, literally independent of governors.
Okay.
You have a situation where governors are not necessarily coming back. You have governors who wanted to go for Senate, but they're not making it. So for the first time, you're seeing the control of the party by the governors is no longer there.
Okay.
So it was a political sleight of hand. Everybody was looking at 16 versus 19, but what was really happening there was the power of the governors was being dissipated. And the fact that it came to 16 versus 19 in itself was the story. But people missed it. I missed it. And even governors missed it.
Okay.
And if you look, soon after that, governors were being suspended and expelled from the party. Never happened before. In fact, the reverse was happening. People were being suspended and expelled from the party by governors.
Right.
If you remember back in 2008, 2007, people were calling for reform in PDP. Those people were being called for suspension and expulsion.
Yeah.
Now, the roles were reversed. Governors were now being the ones suspended and expelled. So, they were fighting themselves. I've always maintained that I'm somewhere in the middle. I'm not taking this side, I'm not taking that side, because, unfortunately, the reality of it is that both sides are guilty. So if you want to try and play clean politics, you find that you can't really jump in bed with any one person, because if you do, there'll be contradictions. But in the end, I had to take a position which was with the president.
Okay.
And that's where I landed.
That's where you landed.
Yes.
But then what, in spite of that, let's come to River State itself. Okay. In River State, there was an understanding, seemingly, of rotating the governorship. But then we saw that it just seemed Barrister Nyesom Wike just out of nowhere decided he was going to be the PDP governorship candidate. Fair enough. There were many others, including yourself. However, it would appear that he just came and conducted himself outside of what would appear to be the line that he should have told, followed procedures like everybody else, like yourself and many others. He seemed to have operated outside of that procedure. How did you see that?
I would like to demonize him single-handedly, but I don't think it was an orchestrated thing. There are many players behind it.
Right.
He's the beneficiary, but he was not alone. He doesn't have that kind of power. There were very powerful, influential individuals who collaborated to create that kind of an outcome. And of course, they broke so many rules. But breaking rules is not new. They've been breaking rules all along. What people like me simply did was give them the opportunity to do the right thing. But we always, of course, prepared ourselves for the alternative in case they did not.
Okay.
Now, where it would have been a big surprise is if they had gone through this well-orchestrated script, and then we didn't react. People like me did not react, and just said, "Oh, okay, well, that's it. Fine. We just accept it." No, we're not accepting it. I mean, this was done to me. Everything else was being done. They were doing their thing by themselves. I just kept myself clean.
Yeah.
I tried to play what you might call progressive politics. Wike, of course, is the beneficiary of a scheme that was planned by several other people. They decided to ignore rotation. Was
there a reason for that scheme or that plan?
You'd have to ask them. I mean, I don't want to second guess or suppose, but for me, at the end of the day, this is the outcome.
Okay.
And however motivated they were, I don't know, but I know that they came up with a scenario which to me was unacceptable. I wasn't so bothered about the rotation. I mean, I'm one of those people who would have benefited from the rotation theory. But I never felt that it should come to me simply on the basis of a rotation theory.
Okay.
I felt it should come to me on the basis of merit. Do I merit the position? I mean, we can rotate the position and then rotate it to another ethnic group, but to a very bad governor.
Yeah.
And then all of us will be the worse for it. So I wanted it to go to who merited it. Okay. And merit for me was, rotation was part of that, yes. I don't think you should ignore those sensitivities. They should be the same. But you need to look at not just where the person comes from, but where the person is taking us.
Okay.
I felt that was important. So to me, that was my message. My message is, yeah, okay, fine, I come from the right area. It's a good story to tell. But beyond that, I have a better story to tell.
Okay.
Which is, this is where I want to take the state.
Now, on the 25th of November last year, you announced to everybody that you had been disqualified. Explain that to us.
Well, it's very difficult to explain because I wasn't the one who was disqualified, but the outcome to it was I found out that I was disqualified. We went for screening. Just walk you through the process so you can understand the frustrations that other people should feel. I didn't feel so frustrated, but first of all, you pay 11 million naira, which is about 44,000 pounds.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah, to buy a phone. Okay? And then after that process, they throw all sorts of bills at you. I refused to pay them. I mean, one of the bills they threw at us was that you should pay 3 million naira additional to the party at the state level. They called it an administrative charge. And they said they should pay. And I thought to myself, well, this is a party that is not even acknowledging the fact that there are other aspirants.
Yes.
And so why should I give them 3 million naira, which is equivalent to about 12,000 pounds? Why would I do that? I'm not doing it. So I didn't bother. Many others did.
Wow.
Okay? Then they now said, you're going to be screened. And to screen you, we want you to pay 2 million naira. It's equivalent of 8,000 pounds. I said, I'm not paying. I refused to pay. Every other person did. Everybody apart from me. So when they disqualified me, I thought, oh, okay, they've disqualified me. It's time to make my move, because I'd already planned this move a long time ago.
Oh, so the move was planned always on the back burner.
Because I noticed the relationship, I noticed what Amaechi was doing in 2011. And I thought to myself, he's going to do what Wike has done now. Amaechi was the person who was going to have done it. Wow. Because Amaechi had control of the party.
Yes.
Now Wike has control of the party. And these are not people who work towards a democratic script. No. This is why when you had Jonathan and you had Amaechi, if you ask me which direction I went to, I'd go to Jonathan, because I know Amaechi is worse. So my scenario was simply plan for what Amaechi would do to me. The same script would be Amaechi's script.
Okay.
So when Wike started doing it, it was just simply brothers.
So he just got into it, he got on doing it first.
Simple. So I had already planned. So when this disqualification took place, I thought, okay guys, it's time. Okay. So I announced to the world that I'd been disqualified. And then they said to us, you can appeal your disqualification, but you need to pay 1.5 million naira So that's £6,000.
Wow.
I said, I'm not paying it. So I'm minding my business, getting ready to make my move. And then I still remember that day, my older brother calling me and saying, hey, they've cleared you, they've cleared you. And I said, but I didn't appeal. I said, they've cleared you. Go and pick up your clearance certificate. So, and I said, but you know, I didn't pay. They said, no, please, go and come. Okay, so I went and they gave me, I was 9 p.m.
Wow.
They were still waiting for me. And I came, they said, Prince, you didn't think we would clear you? I said, no, I wasn't available. So they gave me my clearance certificate. That had to be the saddest day of my political life. Because I did not want to be there. I was disqualified in theory because I'm not supposed to have been a party member.
Right.
So there you go. But I was disqualified alongside other people who went through all these processes, did everything rightfully. And what amazes me and amuses me today is that some of those people are now working with Wike.
I was coming to that now because one of the other contenders that stood out was Wilson Jan, and he made the announcement that he was going to remain in the party and work with Wike. I mean, how do you see that? It's baffling to me, and why it's baffling is not so much as everybody has the right to take a decision that they will take. I think that there are two things that come out to me from that. Okay.
The first really is that if you are in a position where you need to make a statement, I think you need to take advantage of it. And what's the statement that needs to be made? That there's right and there's wrong. And if you see wrong and you keep quiet, then really I'm not too sure what message we're sending to the next generation.
Okay.
I think it's not so much about winning. I may win, I may not win. I hope to win, I work to win. But I do not for 1 minute accept the scenario where I just accept the scenario and say, well, there you go, it's okay. Because I don't want to lose, I'm not going to fight. I will fight a lion if I have to.
Okay.
I may lose, but I may win.
But you're ready to try.
But I will fight, and I will die fighting.
Okay.
So for me, that's the first thing that stands out. I need to make a statement. Second thing that stands out for me is that too often people just, go for the easier road. Be rest assured that the road I'm on is very uncomfortable. It's painful. I got so many calls. Do you want to be an ambassador? Do you want to be this? Do you want to be that? And I laughed. I said, you want to make me ambassador of Iceland? And they said, no, we'll give you a good country. They said, we can't give you the UK, we can't give you the US. I said to myself, these guys must be kidding. I said, okay, you know what, I want the UK. They said, we can't give you the UK. No, I said, I want the US. I said, we can't give you the US. I said, oh, US, this. I think, this person there is there's one big prince and his father, I think he said his father ate with King George V or something, his grandfather. Wow. I said, so me, I'm not a prince. Somebody else is a house
you didn't eat with King George, your grandfather. So I said, no, I want the US. Give me the US or the UK, that's the one I want. But I was just kidding. The truth of the matter was I didn't want anything. Okay. I just want to drive home the point that none of this nonsense should be accepted. Okay. And if you want to win me, I'm still looking for Wike. I haven't found it. We're doing world congresses, nowhere to be found. They just sat somewhere, wrote the results, did what they had to do. The primaries was done in the shabbiest of manners. The venue was a secondary school in his constituency, and the date was announced, the venue was announced the day before. Okay. He was supposed to announce it a week before. All guidelines and rules were broken. So, it would have been nice to have been involved in a contest where he wins. And then we now say, okay, you know what, hey, we would have liked rotation, but you still came, and you contested and competed against us, and you won. But no, none of that. It was rigged aggressively to make sure that no way. You see, I wouldn't have even asked for a level playing field. Just the semblance of a level playing field would be sufficient. I didn't even get that. Wow. So hopefully we'll go into an election and finally I'll meet him. Okay. On that note, we're going to take a short break. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Thank you for staying with us and welcome back. Sir, we were just speaking, you mentioned just then before we went on the break about your being in the Labour Party. There are registered now 24, I believe, political parties in Nigeria. You've gone from AC to PDP and now Labour. First things, were you not concerned that the move may affect your political career? That's the first part of the question. And the second part is, why Labour?
No, I mean, I was concerned that not moving would affect my political career, so it's the other way around. I find that many people are worried about moving political parties, and I've always argued that really they shouldn't worry about that. What they should worry about is why political parties don't stand for something. Because if the political party stood for something, then moving between them would mean a lot. Right now it doesn't mean a lot. The other thing is that politicians need to start to become bolder. They need to be defining themselves. They need to be, confident about themselves.
Are you saying Nigerian politicians are not very confident?
No, they're not. I think, if not for my level of confidence in my own political capacity, I would be troubled by this idea of, a move. Having said that, this is the last bus stop for me.
Okay.
Because I've seen the underbelly of the major political parties. I know them inside out.
Okay.
I understand AC and now APC very well. I understand the players. I know their motivations. The same applies to PDP. So since I'm not going back to those arrangements and I found a home in Labour Party, this is where I'm going to be. Now if I leave the Labour Party, we'll be leaving politics.
Okay.
And so we want to hope that I don't leave the Labour Party.
Okay.
I just got the news today that my candidature in the Labour Party has been confirmed.
Okay.
So it's good. It's good. I'm quite comfortable with a party where they don't start throwing all sorts of bills at you. Because God knows that if they were throwing bills at me, I'd have just quit politics altogether. So Labour Party I'm comfortable with, but people don't understand that Tonye Princewill is actually a Labour Party member here in the UK. This is where I started my own game called politics.
Okay, so you're part of the UK Labour Party.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so the ideals are not too different. If there's any party in Nigeria that actually has ideology, it's the Labour Party. Because it's again born out of the labour movement, trade unions. My single point agenda, which I continue to echo, is job creation, jobs. That's what the Labour Party is about. Free education, free health, the relationship between employer and employee, and all of that. So we share a lot of common traits. Many people think because of this Prince tag that I'm a capitalist. The truth of the matter is that, if anything, I'm a social democrat.
Okay.
I believe that society must prosper, but you can't prosper at the expense of the less and the more vulnerable.
Okay.
You need to be able to drag them along into prosperity. Yes, even if it's kicking and screaming, you have a responsibility to make sure that they are also taken care of, and that you cannot just leave them and go forward. So being wealthy and being good is not good enough. Society has to be wealthy, society has to be good. And so I share quite a lot of the ideas of the Labour Party, and I'm very comfortable with the masses. I'm very comfortable with masses. I can shed the suit and put on the shorts and the t-shirt any day, and that is, I think, one of the traits. So for me, the Labour Party is a comfortable place to be. Okay. And win or lose, I'm going to stay here.
First of all, why are you here in the UK and doing all of this when others would have said you should be in Nigeria?
No, it's to me it's a cosmic alliance that brings me here. I have always, I'm a diaspora, spent a lot of time here in the UK as well, and I went back and saw how bad things were and decided that I needed to do something about it. Okay. I found that my diaspora roots were what gave me the leverage to make a difference, whereas other people were looking for what they would gain from it. I was looking to see what I could give. My eyes had been exposed, I had seen differently, and having seen differently, I realized that the problem with many of my brothers and sisters was they didn't see, they couldn't see, they didn't understand what needed to be done. So it would have been very helpful if I had more diasporans with me. Okay. Because if I did, they would be side by side with me, working this thing together, and I would have achieved a lot more. Because I find that many of my brothers and sisters over there require orientation before they can actually make things happen. I'm very generous, but the problem I have is that if you give away 8 naira from your 10 naira, then you seem to be richer than somebody who is giving 5 naira from his 100 naira. So many people think I'm wealthy, I have a lot of money, and so they expect more of me than I can actually deliver. But I give everything I have. I throw myself into it. And I think the only people that can do that are diaspora people, because diaspora people understand the need to give. It's not about get. This society is not about just go and grab. You actually have to put something in as well. So I'm here really to felicitate my brothers and sisters, to get them to understand that this fight I'm fighting isn't just for me. Because many diasporans go to Nigeria and they're frowned upon. They're like, oh, look at you, you just come in and you want to come and, you know, there's so many things that diasporans have to give, but there's no channel, there's no medium through which to give it. And I'm hoping that I can help in that regard. Okay. And of course, you know, it would be impractical to just say I want to help without saying how. And so I came to talk to them, and I want to set up a diaspora desk. So this
was from the town hall meeting?
Yes, well, it's not from the town hall meeting. It was mentioned at the town hall meeting, but it's always been there. I've mentioned it before. I've always felt that the diaspora desk would be the perfect opportunity to get diasporans, not just from River State, but diasporans generally, to know that there's a state in Nigeria where they have an interest, and their interest will be protected. Okay.
You know, you've mentioned that. How did you feel about the town hall meeting? Was it a positive reception? Was it an encouraging reception? How did you find that?
Well, I felt good. I mean, for me, it was more an opportunity to just speak, to vent, and also to listen, to take in. There are many people who I haven't seen for a while. I just wanted to know I was passing through. Okay. Unfortunately, because of the nature of things, I keep coming and going. Sometimes when I get into London, I spend the first day recovering from the stress of Nigeria. Right. Just hanging out with the kids and my wife. And then next thing I know, I'm back out again. So lots of people I don't get to see. So this was an opportunity to tell them, I'm on my way, I'm coming, and I'm going to be in this location, and you can be sure I'll be there. So give people an opportunity to come, and many of them did. I was very happy with the outpouring of emotion and people that came. But for me, it wasn't so much as a predictable outcome. I didn't know what was going to come out of it. Okay. I just wanted to talk with my brothers and sisters. I'm happy we interacted quite well. Okay. And they spoke from the heart, just like I did. Okay. That's good. So you've got a feel of what the diasporans found, at least those from River State. Now, we know that you've spoken there about unemployment, creating employment. It's a drive. It's something that we've seen you do, talk about, and wanting to do. What are some of the things you will do if you were in office as Mr. Governor to ensure that employment is created for the young people of River State? Yeah, well, you know, there's something that let's look at some histories now. So Tony Blair comes in and says his 3 priorities are education, education, education. Okay, so he came and he threw himself into it. It doesn't mean he didn't look into other areas. Of course he did. But he looked into education because he saw it as a central theme for his own government. So for me, it's jobs. And the idea basically is that in anything you're doing, you're thinking jobs. I'm fixing security, but I'm thinking jobs. I'm looking at education, but I'm thinking jobs. I don't want to just educate people for degrees. I want to educate them so they have a job. Okay. That will automatically mean I don't just focus on degree education. I don't just focus on university education. I focus on skills acquisition. I focus on vocational skills. So for me, your education system needs to be tailored so that you're creating jobs. Now, what are the jobs that can be created? What is the skills gap between person A and the job that he needs to get? And how do we fill that? So education becomes targeted for job creation. Now, what are the areas you can create jobs? Of course, there's several areas. There's pretty much no area in Nigeria that doesn't require development, be it infrastructure, be it the educational system, be it agriculture. So what we need to simply do is look to see how we can take agriculture from where it is to a different level. There's a lot of let us call it model infrastructure for agriculture in Nigeria.
That's right.
The River State, you have the Songhai farms. It's a model. Why don't we scale it upwards?
Okay.
Of course you can scale it upwards, but you need government intervention. Look at the transport sector. Why can't you do that there? We never, ever, ever subsidize transport. We should. You go to any major city here in London, transport sector is subsidized, but it's not subsidized in Nigeria. So Port Harcourt wants to be one of the first cities in Nigeria where we subsidize the transport system.
Okay.
Look at housing. So all these are areas where jobs can be created.
Let me hold you there, because I'm going to bring you back to that. Amongst all of those different projects that he did, just pick one that you would do better, that you would develop for the enhancement of the people and the state if you had the opportunity.
All of them. All of them.
And how would you do it?
Well, let's look at education, for instance. I've always said it, and I said it to him, that fantastic school buildings don't teach people.
Right.
And our job is to learn from those mistakes. They don't necessarily have to be our own. We can learn from other people's mistakes. And I mentioned when we were off air that I introduced him to Tinubu. A lot of what the Lagos State government did, we had studied it. So when he first came into office, a lot of what he was doing was built out of some of the experiences that some of us had. I wanted to run for governor just like he did. So I had a manifesto, I had an agenda, and I was in AC at the time. So Fashola and others were all in the same school of thought. So we were doing a lot of thinking, a lot of reasoning together. So I have no doubt that Amechi tried to do things well, and I'm sure he meant well.
Okay.
But I think a couple of things are not finished properly. So you asked me which one, I would say definitely the schools is one area where we could have improved. But there are many others.
Okay. We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back. Please stay with us. Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. Now, sir, we've gone right back to the beginning, talked about the middle and so on. But, on the 21st of December, headlines were raging. Why? Because you actually said that PDP will lose in River State because of Barrister Nyesom Wike's running, Is that still the case? Do you still believe that he will lose in River State, given that he has now the support of, Wilson Jack and many others that are? Is that support not strengthening his cause to win? Is he still going to lose?
Yeah, the simple answer is yes. I thought he was going to lose before, and I'm still convinced that he will lose.
Right. Okay. And why do you say he will lose?
Well,
what are your reasons?
It's simply, sometimes I even wonder if he's actually designed to win. Because I look at APC, and I look at the build-up to this period we are now, and there was no chance of them winning.
Okay.
But sometimes I've made mention before that I suspect that the fight between Amechi and Wike is not genuine, and so I still hold on to that. But the question is, was the fight staged so that Wike could lose and APC could win? Because it doesn't look to me like there's actually a fight staged for Wike to win. It doesn't strike me as that at all. In fact, one of the reasons I'm so determined to play this role I'm playing now is that I don't want Wike to mess up PDP and APC to win, because Wike is doing pretty much everything that is suitable to an APC victory. So forgive me, but I tend to see things a little differently.
Okay.
It's
a very interesting take, perhaps.
But that's my take on it, and several reasons. I don't want to go into them because of time constraints, but there's several reasons why it doesn't make sense from the court judgment. From the court judgment that brought in the Felix Ogboa-led PDP.
Okay.
It happened in slow motion. Amechi could have stopped it. He didn't. And so I'm not convinced that his departure to APC was out of frustration. I thought it was staged. And of course, if you had been the APC vice presidential candidate, then the script would have been well written. But as with most schemes and plots, they forget that God is the ultimate schemer.
Interesting. Now, you are called the digital politician because, you do a lot of things digitally on the internet and so on. But you're also referred to as a gentleman. And we know that, the Nigerian politics is one that is quite dirty and murky. I mean, you've described some of it. Do you really think that it's a suitable place for a gentleman to be? And do you have what it takes to continue with this fight?
No, I mean, I think the tag of gentleman is a relative tag. There's no doubt that if you roll around with pigs, you're bound to get dirty. So since I've won the tag of politician, I'm without doubt going to end up being also smart. It's not one of those scenarios where Tonye Princewill is a pastor or a saint. No, not that at all. There's things I won't do, yes, there's no doubt about it. But one of the things I won't do is lie over and get walked on. It's not going to happen.
The current governor, one of the things that he said he was doing in order for the development of the state, growth, economy of the state, was that he wants to leave a 6 billion naira fund where any business that is started in River State, the business must be registered in River State. Anybody from anywhere on the planet can have access to this fund, but it must be registered in River State. For him, that was to create part of the development of the state. What are some of the things you would do to develop that internal economy that River State will need should you be the governor of the day?
Okay, so for me, it's always about how you think about things. So if I'm talking about business and developing the business community, I'm doing it simply because I'm trying to create jobs. So for me, jobs is where you start from. All right, so you can't create jobs without encouraging small to medium scale enterprise because the real employer of labor is them, not government. So for me, I've always argued that if you want to truly create jobs, you need to encourage business community.
Okay.
Now, if you talk to the business community, you find out what their issues are. The number one issue is access to affordable capital.
Right.
So creating a fund like that will make a lot of sense. So it's quid pro quo. I'm giving you the funds, but you're creating jobs.
Okay.
Now, if you're creating jobs for me, you're getting the funds because the reason I'm giving you the funds is that you're creating jobs for my people because my priority is job creation.
Right.
So it's the way you approach it. You can't just approach it and say, I want to give you funds, because at the end of the day, as a business, you pay IGR. If you pay IGR, it increases my IGR as governor, which is helpful to me. But I'm not just about increasing IGR, I'm also about creating jobs, because creating jobs ultimately is also an increase in the IGR. I'd rather have a lower IGR and more employed people than a high IGR and fewer employed people.
Okay.
But I believe you can do both. And it's all about prioritizing. So for me, it's all about job creation. So that is a perfect thing. But the other thing that you need to do, and I learned this from the Obi of Onitsha, I was giving scholarships and he said to me, Tony, why are you giving scholarships just to undergraduates? Why don't you give scholarships to postgraduates? Because they've already done their first degree and they have demonstrated a willingness to learn and a commitment to learn. And then the postgraduates have just the odd year, all right, maybe 2. So your turnaround time is quicker. Same thing for businesses. Why give money to fresh businesses? Why not give money to businesses that have shown themselves capable of something and they're looking to get to the next level? Those are the kind of businesses we should be giving money to.
Okay, we've talked about a lot about creating employment and so on, but we know that health is an area that every Nigerian is plagued by, or the facilities are said not to be there, or they're not up to standard. What would you do in that key area to ensure that every Rivers person has access to some kind of medical assistance should the need arise?
Well, I think it's we need to commend the government. The government has done a lot in terms of health, and Meche has tried in that regard. But again, it's the finishing touches that need to be put in place.
Okay.
We've not been able to put in place any tertiary institution in terms of health. We've tried in primary healthcare, we've tried in secondary healthcare. See the issues with secondary healthcare, but definitely the issues with tertiary healthcare.
Okay.
And we need to do that so that we don't need to fly people out for major operations. We don't need to fly them out for, surgery and so on and so forth. I think it's probably that the government has not been able to attract the right kind of manpower, that kind of skill set. And the only way you can do that is from collaboration. And I've seen collaborations go wrong.
Okay.
So I want to say that the responsibility has laid firmly with the government. The government could have done a better job of that.
Okay.
We will. We will do a much better job of that.
Okay. Now I know that you mentioned transportation, you know, and the fact that it was not subsidized in Nigeria. I mean, do we one of the things is that we don't actually have a proper standardized form of transportation for the masses. What are some of the areas that you will tackle within transportation? A quick resolve that will bring about, you know, proper alternative means as opposed to everybody being on the road, but, you know, maybe they can have trains or have buses that will operate.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, we've got to take it. We can't be too overly ambitious with this. I mean, simply what we're saying is, we have a form of transport right now. How do we improve on it?
Right.
Okay, so we have rail. So now you can go from Port Harcourt to Enugu by rail. If we play our cards right, you have stops. So just like you can go through the underground here, you can also go overground.
Yes.
And if stops are strategic, then you don't have just the one option, you have more than one option. So you can either go by underground or, of course, go by overground. So if I'm taking off from, say, one part of Port Harcourt town, and the train on its way out of Port Harcourt is not moving at too high a speed, it's walking its way until it gets outside of Port Harcourt before it sort of takes off. Those stops, which is working with the Nigerian Railway Corporation, will help in terms of alternative transport via rail for Port Harcourt citizens.
Okay.
So that's one thing. Of course, you have transport by water. River State is a riverine state, and it has a lot of riverine communities.
Absolutely.
So you can do a lot in that regard. But more importantly, we're talking about bus lanes. We're talking about improved quality of buses. We're talking about bus routes in terms of roads and proper planning. That is not happening. That has not happened. And of course, we intend to do that. But it involves a lot of investment. And governments around River State, around Nigeria, including River State, have not understood the need to pump money into transport. I understand the need. We'll be doing that.
You'll be doing that, pumping a lot of money there. Okay. You know, one of the other fears, I know I'm going to jump back there again, back to this Wiki situation. One of the fears a lot of Rivers people have expressed is that if he were to make it as governor, that insecurity will return back to the state. What is your view on that? Do you think that it's likely to happen, or do you think that you know, insecurity will improve?
I don't think that a Wiki governor would be more secure than a Tonye governor.
Okay.
I think that's probably the simplest way to answer the question. I hope that insecurity does not increase. I pray that it does not. But there's no doubt that you know, violence begets violence, and that a Wiki governorship would not be a Wiki governorship of peace.
Right.
It would be a Wiki governorship of drama. And I think River State is beyond that. One of the reasons I'm sure that he won't be a victor is simply because the people of River State, they know the difference between peace and the difference between war. And what they're ready for now is peace. They want development. Okay.
Now, he's not going to win. We have Dakuku running for APC. And of course, your good self, you know, for Labour. You don't believe Wiki is going to win. In a situation where Wiki should lose and Dakuku was to win for the APC, for instance, what do you think, what kind of a government do you think that River State is likely to have?
Well, you know, I've got to be honest with you, I don't see that scenario painting itself out either.
Okay.
Don't forget I said that I felt the staged war between Wiki and Amechi was designed for a Dakuku victory.
Yes.
And so we're here to prevent that.
Okay.
So really what we're hoping will happen is that River people will stand up and reject both parties. It's not going to be easy, but that's my mission. That's why I'd rather we finish this interview so I can go back to Port Harcourt and start working. But I'm really confident that Amechi told me something once, and it was very poignant. He said to me he had two choices between party chairman for PDP in the States. This was in 2007. Okay. And he said his choices were Dakuku or G.U. Ake. Eventually he chose G.U. Ake. And I asked him why he opted for G.U. Ake. He said he wanted peace. That means if he had wanted war, he would have chosen Dakuku.
That's interesting.
So now here we're presented with Dakuko as governor. I don't think Rivers State people want war. I think they want peace.
Interesting.
And that's why I'm confident that I'll be the one who will be the victor and the governor of the state come 2015.
Okay. Now, based on the confidence that you know for yourself, now for the rest of us, or for the rest of those who have their PVCs and they're confused and they're wondering, who do we vote for and why? Can you look to the camera and tell us why people should vote for Prince Tonye Princewill, the reasons why they should vote for you, and what you will do for the people of Rivers State?
Okay, I think it's pretty obvious now that only one of the candidates has gone around the whole state and asked the question, or the questions that matter. And that was, what do you want for Rivers State? What is your biggest challenge? What is your biggest problem? I hear from time to time when I walk around that people want jobs. They're tired. They want peace. They want development. I am the only one who can genuinely give this to you, because I'm not only telling you I'm going to create jobs, I actually know how to create jobs. A politician can promise all he wants, but you really need to understand and ask yourself, does he have the capacity to deliver on those promises that he's making? With me, the answer is yes. But I pose one question which I think is very important, and I want you to think long and hard about this. Which of these candidates would you like your children to be like when they grow up? That is a very important question. Do you want a Wike for a son? Do you want a Dakuku for a son? Or would you rather have Tonye Princewill? I think that in itself should guide you. God bless you, and have a wonderful 2015. Thank you.
Why, thank you very much for your time, sir.
Thank you.
Wish you all the best.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Well, you've heard from the man. He's giving you all the reasons why you should vote for him. Now, if you have your PVC, don't stay at home, because your vote is your power. Don't sell it either. Go out there and vote for who you think is the best candidate. Thank you for watching. Good night.